Welcome to the Strangeology Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Foran. From cryptozoology, ufology, and the paranormal, to legends, forbidden history, and more. Listen in and explore the world of the weird and unexplained. Join me as I look into strange and fascinating tales and unearth the truths and theories behind some of the world's greatest mysteries. Be sure to head on over to our HQ, Strangeology.com, where you can check out our blog, episodes archive, gift shop, and so much more. Now sit back, relax, and join me as we get weird. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I hope everyone is enjoying longer days and warmer weather. The winter doesn't seem to quite want to let go yet where I'm at, but I think the forecast is showing a trend in warming temperatures. So I know I'm ready to stop wearing my winter jacket. So here's the big news for today. As I'm recording this intro segment on April 3rd, 2022, Strangeology just celebrated its 2-year anniversary, which is totally wild. The podcast itself is only a little over a year old. I think it was around late December 2020 when I pulled the trigger on launching it. But if you're new here or didn't know, Strangeology started over on Instagram originally. Nothing was really going on at the start of the pandemic, so I decided to start posting over there about like cryptids and UFOs, the paranormal, and that kind of thing. And well, now we're here 2 years later, and this thing is kind of grown into something. So thank you for checking out my show and supporting what I do here. It's amazing, and you have my deepest thanks and gratitude. I love doing this and digging into fun topics or having interesting conversations with other people who are part of the fortean community. And just know that this is just the beginning. We're not stopping or slowing down, and the more people support what I'm doing here, the content I make will get bigger and better. So here's to many more years to come. Also, hello and thank you to anyone who has just started listening to my show. If you're not aware, I'm on TikTok, and in the last 2 weeks, my account over there kind of exploded. I've been pushing some short form video content there that people seem to really be into on cryptids and some other stuff. So if you're not following me there, definitely don't miss out on that. And again, welcome to anyone new to the show who enjoys listening to longer form podcast discussions on cryptids, UFOs, the paranormal, and that kind of thing. As far as other updates, I just moved into a larger office space. Technically, I'm moving back into this room that I'm in. When I moved into my house a few years ago, I originally set my computer up in this upstairs spare bedroom that I'm in, but then things got kind of moved around, and I wound up parking on the landing at the top of the stairs and had kind of a limited amount of space. But since things are kind of growing with the podcast and all the other stuff that's associated with it, I was like, yeah, I need to make some more room, especially with video content stuff that I'm trying to do more of. And I was a little wishy-washy about taking up more space, but my partner was like, let's do it, because if you don't do it now, you're not going to. So I still have a lot of organizing to do, and I'm trying to set up a nice little area to film videos for YouTube video stuff, but I've got a few things I'm waiting on in the mail for that. I just picked up a brand new lens for my camera, which I've been testing out with, and it looks really cool. So I'm stoked. I'm pumped. So yeah, this means that there's going to be some good quality content coming from Strangeology. So stay tuned for all that kind of stuff on that front. And one more thing before we get into the episode today. I do have a few new items in the shop in the Home State Cryptids and Legends collection that I have going. This project that I've been working on since the summer of 2020. So the new ones are for Kansas and North Carolina. So definitely check those out. I have this progress map, which I've been using in my video series that I've been posting over on TikTok, where I'll do the cryptid for whatever state. And I post these on YouTube as well. And I've been getting a lot of requests for a large print of the map once it's complete. So that's definitely going to be available at some point in the near future. I think I only have about 11 or 12 states left to fill in for the map of the U.S. But then there's ones I want to circle back to when I, with states that have like multiple awesome cryptids and things like that. There's a few that already have multiple, like West Virginia and Arizona. I definitely want to hit Kentucky again. And then there's the eventual moving out to the international realm. I've had people requesting to do like a Canadian map and other places around. So yeah, that's so much stuff going on. Anyway, that's enough out of me. For today's episode, I had a super fun conversation with Jordan Heath, and he's one of the co-hosts of Campfire, Tales of the Strange and Unsettling. Jordan is a kindred spirit, and we have a really similar background of being into music and touring and weird stuff. So I think you're going to like it. Make sure to grab a drink and a snack and settle in, because we talked for a good long while about music, about cryptids, and the fortean world in general. All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. Tonight's guest is Jordan Heath, who co-hosts the podcast Campfire, Tales of the Strange and Unsettling. Jordan's a super nice dude. Happy to have him here tonight. He's a Midwest native, a musician, an artist, a writer, and most importantly, an enthusiast of the weird. So thanks for coming on to the show tonight, Jordan. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. Stoked to be here.
Awesome. I see we have a guest in the background there with some kitty cat action.
Oh yeah, always.
We love the cats. I've got three at home myself.
Yeah, my wife is a vet tech, so we're overrun.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. So you're a music guy. I'm a music guy. I think one of the first times that we chatted was in reference to, I think it was Motion City Soundtrack or something like that. I used one of their songs on an Instagram story post that I did, and you messaged me. You're like, "Hey, you're a pretty all right dude. I think we can be friends." How would you say growing up like in that Midwest music scene, how has it affected like your life?
Well, I mean, significantly, really. Like, it started out with punk rock, right? Like, Orion and we were in punk bands together from the age of like 14. We were writing punk songs and all that. But by the time, I think we went through the same like metamorphosis that most punk kids did, where like we started listening to like the emo stuff in the early 2000s. And then that became like hardcore by the time high school was over, and then metal in our 20s. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But by the time I was a senior in high school, it became clear that like the fun in Indiana, at least at that time, was at hardcore shows. Like because we live in like we grew up in a rural town, like an hour from the nearest decent city with a decent venue, especially for punk shows. But that time period was like, in Indiana, in the Midwest in general, but Indiana specifically, it was the Christian hardcore scene was huge.
Interesting.
I mean, yeah. Like enormous.
So like
so
people
like
who are super into like Under Oath and stuff.
yes, yeah,
Right on.
basically.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you ever heard of the Cornerstone Music Festival, but like
yeah, sort of familiar, but I'm not totally sure.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a niche, right? The Christian hardcore scene. But
Sure.
like in the Midwest in the early 2000s, if you wanted to play for more than 10 people, you went to Christian hardcore shows.
Yeah.
Like I would go to like a punk show in Indianapolis and they would be playing like gutter street punk for like 6 people and half of them rode in the van there with them, you know?
Yeah, I feel that vibe, man. Too many times.
Yeah. But then I'd go to Kokomo and go to like a Christian hardcore show where every band there sounded like Haste the Day or sounded like, a really bad version of Under Oath. And they'd be playing for 300 kids packed into a hall. And yeah, so that's what I gravitated toward. And honestly, I don't know if I ever really bought I was raised by like atheist parents. So the Christian thing never really got me hook, line, and sinker. But I think I took a lot from that scene, from the people I met there. I think that affected my life the most, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. And coming from a small rural town, and you go into these communities and scenes where a lot of the times, people are super accepting. There's definitely cliques and people who are problematic in those scenes.
Yeah.
As I've learned
sure.
over the years. But yeah, like in my experience, I grew up in a town of 3,000 people.
Yeah.
And
same.
And the biggest city where I'm from is only like 40,000 people, and lived about half an hour, 35 minutes away. So after I was in high school, I had to drive out there to meet with people and form bands and that kind of thing. And the punk shows are always just like whoever your friends are that you bring to the show and nobody else. And it's still the case today. And the hardcore scene was always like super strong. I remember going with an old friend to go see Terror and Most Precious Blood, and I think there was one local opening band at this indoor skate park that used to be in Burlington, Vermont, and it was packed.
That poor local band.
I know,
man. Local bands playing in front of Terror fans. Good luck.
Yeah. There's one time where the one hardcore band I played we opened up for Murphy's Law at like the big venue in town, and it was just like tons of people. It was a wild time, but like any other band I've been in since, it's just kind of been like, you got a dozen people come out and that's fine, but it's about the community,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to get used to that if you're in the punk scene, for sure.
Exactly. So you play guitar and you also play bass, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I started with bass, but ultimately guitar players were more needed than bass players, so I figured it out.
Yeah, right on. Have you spent time like touring before? Did you used to like get in the van and play around the Midwest, or mostly local to Indiana?
Yeah, we did. I was in several bands in my early 20s that did like legitimate tours through the Midwest and the South. I always wanted to make it up to your area, but we never quite got there. But yeah, we would go out for like 2-week tours off and on. The longest one we ever did, we did 3 weeks. We did all the way down to Florida and back.
Oh,
and then we did like 5 dates on the what was that? It was a huge tour that we just got added to 5 dates. It was like Misery Signals and Darkest Hour and like all these huge bands. It was like a festival.
No kidding.
And we did like the last 5 dates of that tour.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah,
awesome.
I definitely did I did my fair share of sleeping on top of base cabinets in the back of vans. Yeah, driving
That's
down the
awesome.
interstate.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't done as much touring as I'd like, but back in 2018, my current band, uh, which is the longest band I've ever been in, which is weird. It's going on 8 years now.
That's awesome.
We did do like an 8 or 9 day tour in the summertime, and
Yeah.
I picked up this van. Turned out it was like super rusty and it couldn't be inspected, which sucked. So
Yeah.
we had to ditch it after the tour. But we it was like nights of either sleeping on, like someone was nice enough to offer up a few beds or a couch, but then there are other shows. Like we played a show in Philly, and we stayed at our buddy's apartment that he had just moved into, and he had no furniture, and it was sweltering hot, no AC. I think he had
man.
like he had like an ottoman footstool, and my bassist wound up sleeping on that. He just kind of like curled up, and like I was on the floor, and yeah, just roughing it,
Yeah.
What would you say your favorite show that you've ever been to?
Oh man. Okay. So Every Time I Die and The Chariot played at a place called Bulldog's Cafe in Kentucky. It was right on the Indiana-Kentucky border. And this place was, a 5-inch stage that place didn't business having more than 50 people in it, but I was packed in there with like 150 kids.
Oh man.
And both those bands are notoriously wild on stage, especially The Chariot. Like they literally, I'm pretty sure they've burned a couple venues down while playing. Like they're pretty insane.
Yeah.
But that was the craziest show and most enjoyable. It was insane. There were as many people at times. It felt like there were as many people in the crowd as were on top of the crowd, between the crowd and the 8-foot roof.
Oh my God.
Right? Like,
yeah. That's fun. Oh
yeah.
Man. Glad that place didn't collapse.
Yeah, it felt like we were in a cardboard box.
Yeah. Oh man. Are you like self-taught with playing guitar? And follow up to that, what's your favorite kind of guitar to play?
Okay. Well, I started out, my dad is a blues guy. He plays blues guitar. He always has. So I grew up learning from him. But basically when I must have been 13 or 14, I got my first real, actually it was a bass. I got my first real guitar. It was a bass. It was a P bass.
Nice.
And I just kind of took off from there, because at that point I started getting into like the punk stuff, and like about as far from like Muddy Waters as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Right. So I just kind of ran from there, and it was all like I was sneaking into grocery stores and like tearing out the little tab sections out of the Guitar World magazine and stuffing them in my pockets, and
there you go,
just to learn songs. And yeah, it was pre-internet, right? Before you could just Google the song you wanted to learn.
Exactly. Yeah. Late 90s.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I saw that you have like a Telecaster. Is that kind of your main axe, if you will?
Yeah, that's my go-to right now. It has been for a few years. I'd say that's my favorite kind of guitar to play. And also my favorite guitar of all time is a Telecaster, the Pro Am 2.
Nice.
Or the Am Pro 2, right?
Sweet.
But I could never justify spending $2,000 on a guitar, so I've never owned one. Unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. I've spent way too much on guitars and basses over the years.
Yeah. The studio level Telecasters are more in my tax bracket.
There you go.
Yeah.
What would you say is like your favorite genre or band currently? Okay,
so there are two unsigned bands that I've been obsessed with for the last few years, and just kind of watching their progress, and they write some incredible stuff. So there's a band from Denver called Overslept. I'm just obsessed with them, and they're the coolest guys. And then from Indianapolis, there's a band called Antlerhead. They're both like kind of post rock, like in the same vein as like maybe the Spill Canvas or Circus Survive. Like
okay.
that, yeah. And just brilliant guys, brilliant
Nice.
musicians.
I'll have to check them out because I'm not familiar with either of them. I've been so busy recently that I haven't really had a chance to check out too much new music.
Honestly, I just kind of happened upon Overslept in one of those, you're in a rabbit hole just connecting this to the next thing and the next thing.
Right.
I ran into them a few years ago. And the only reason I found Antlerhead is because we have mutual friends.
Oh, you go.
They're from here in Indiana. So yeah, but great bands. I definitely recommend them.
Nice. And what would you say are your like top 3 or 5 albums of all time?
Okay, so of all the like prep questions that I got, this is the one I was the most glad that I got ahead of time, because this is like, I always find these things like impossible to do on the fly.
Oh yeah.
So so I made a list for you. Top 5. Okay.
Let's go.
So number 5 is We Don't Have Each Other, the album from Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties. The dude from Wonder Years.
Okay.
I don't know if his side project.
I've never listened to it, but
oh man,
I might have to check it out.
It's brilliant. It's like, if you like Wonder Years, it's kind of like if their vocalist started a band like Bright Eyes.
Okay.
Yeah. Lots of arrangement, and yeah, it's really good.
Nice.
Okay. Number 4 is Pump Up the Volume from NoFX.
Yeah. Yep. That was one of my first probably top 10 or 15 albums in high school. I know that one.
Oh yeah, definitely. Number 3 is Deloused in the Comatorium by the Mars Volta.
Hey.
Yeah.
The Mars Volta. Wow.
Oh yeah.
I've seen them a few times. I got to meet Cedric once at a show in Boston.
That's awesome.
Which was weird and wild.
Yeah. I've heard he's a pretty strange guy in prison.
Yeah.
You'd have to be, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2 is Define the Great Line from Under Oath. I think that's like a perfect album, beginning to end.
Right on.
And number 1 is Losing Streak by Less Than Jake.
Oh, man. Yeah. I feel like ska is kind of making a little bit of a revival, although the Boss Tones just broke up.
Yeah, that seems like a bad omen.
Yeah. There was a band that my band played with a few years back, and they're still active. I think they're from Jersey, called Keep Flying, that are very much in that kind of like Less Than Jake aesthetic, but with like more of like a modern pop punk twist to it. You should definitely check them out. They're super fun.
Yeah, I will definitely.
Yeah.
That's cool. So that's my top 5.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Jordan.
Yeah.
I'm glad I gave you a heads up that I was going to ask some music stuff. And to transition into talking about not music things, because I'm sure everyone who's listening is wondering, why aren't you talking about cryptids and aliens and all that stuff? Right. What would you say your ideal supergroup band of only cryptids would be?
All right. This is an awesome question. Yeah. I love this. Okay. Because like the storyboarder inside me came out, right?
Nice.
Seeing this all laid out. So on drums, the Dover Demon. Okay.
Oh man, the spindly arms just wailing away.
Yep.
Shedding some wood.
Yeah. His snare rolls definitely are super tight.
Yeah.
The guitars, a Wendigo and a Skinwalker.
Oh God. That just
on both guitars.
That's just like Doyle and Jerry only.
Exactly. That's exactly what I had in my head.
Nice.
Just these tall looming figures on each side of the stage, right?
Yep.
On bass, the Grafton Monster.
There you go. Holding
This
it down.
Huge. Yep.
The rhythm
Huge,
section.
thick dude. Yep. On synth, we have a Fresno Nightcrawler.
Yes. I like it.
No hands needed because it's all pre-programmed. Okay.
That's great.
And the vocalist would be Mothman.
Oh, of course.
For sure. And they basically only play Merciful Fate covers.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for that. That made my day. Oh,
excellent.
Yeah.
I kind of want a t-shirt of it now.
Yeah, we should talk to Jonathan Dodd or Easton Hawk. They'd probably be able to make something rad.
Right.
So, all right. So you and your co-host Ryan have this podcast. It's called Campfire, Tales of the Strange and Unsettling.
Yeah.
What was the catalyst for starting this show for you guys?
Well, Ryan and I have been best friends for 25 years, which is insane to say out loud. And it doesn't seem like that, but since we were about 7 years old, we've been best friends. And as we kind of transitioned into adulthood and started families and got real jobs, and we kind of you naturally just kind of drift apart, right? You just start spending less and less and less time together. So the original purpose of doing this was to have a solid excuse that neither of us could get out of every week to get together and hang out.
Nice.
Right? Yeah. And we'd talked about doing a podcast for years, probably 5 years that we'd talked about it. And now I wish we'd done it 5 years ago because we'd be 5 years farther along. But and 5 years in podcasting is like an eternity.
Yeah.
Right. But so we sat down and we tried to we made a list of things we could, genres basically that we could take the podcast toward. And we just kept going back to our favorite childhood memories, which were campfire times, right? Like out camping, sitting around a campfire, telling scary stories to each other.
Yeah.
And that's what we based it around.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a great way to, keep in touch with your best bud and just do the damn thing,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So, like many people who are into the paranormal, the fortean world, whatever you want to call it, we got into this stuff at an early age. Was this the case for you and Ryan? And what's the first thing that you remember where you were like, oh, that's a thing I need to learn everything about?
Okay. So yeah, it was definitely early. My dad was always into this stuff, not quite as deep as I am these days, but he was always he has this incredible Bigfoot encounter story from when he was in Alaska, when he was young. Young.
Yeah.
And I'm dead set on doing something with that. I don't know if I'm going to write a story based on it or if I'm just going to get him to tell it on the show.
Yeah.
But I grew up sitting every weekend. He would have a bonfire with his brothers and, go through, I don't know, probably too much beer over the course of the weekend, but just hanging out around the bonfire. And I heard that encounter story probably every weekend of my life for 12 years. And it just got scarier and scarier every time he told it. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that was what initially piqued my interest, but the things that went along with that, I grew up watching Unsolved Mysteries with him and watching X-Files and anything that had to do with it, he was into. So I was also into, but aside from that, what made it practical for me was actually his younger brother, was my Uncle Randy, was into the occult stuff.
Okay.
The witchcraft and the like lucid dreaming, and like he was into the like woo woo side of things, you know.
Right on.
And I remember him talking to me and Ryan actually about it. I remember I have a specific memory from when we were maybe 14 or 15. It was before high school, of him like giving us the steps or tips on how to lucid dream. And like we just had conversations like that with people in like authority, you know, like authority figures when we were kids talk to us about things like that seriously. So it made it feel legit, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's a great story of how you got into it.
Yeah.
And this Alaskan Bigfoot encounter, that sounds
Yeah.
that sounds like a pretty awesome story.
I mean, the setup for it is wild. Like my dad grew up he was like a young teen in would have been the early 60s. And his parents were not the best parents. He was maybe 13, and he and his older brother, who was 15, ended up like running away from home, and they're hitchhiking, right? And they make it from Indiana all the way up to Alaska.
Oh, wow.
Hitchhiking. Yeah. So basically they don't catch a ride one night, and they have to like huddle together under their like coats on the side of the road in Alaska and sleep. And it's while they're there huddled under their jackets that they have a Bigfoot encounter.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it's like, I won't go into the whole thing, but like that's the setting, and it's one hell of a story.
Yeah. You're gonna have to definitely do something with that. Thanks for sharing just like a teaser.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. So what's your process like when you research episodes? Do you go out and buy books, or do you watch documentaries? You read blogs and articles on the internet? Like how does that process work for you guys?
I would say, and I can't really speak for Ryan because we alternate, you know, each episode is researched by the other. But when I do, I would say, and I know a lot of people say a little bit of everything, but like I try to lean heavily toward books and primary sources, right? I have like a fairly significant academic background, so it's kind of been pounded into my head to like search for primary sources. To everything should have like 3 separate independent sources before you can consider it legitimate.
Right.
Things which makes this niche kind of difficult.
Yeah.
Because every time I start researching a new subject, I find 35 web pages that are just copy pasted whatever the last web page was, you know?
Yep. I run into that myself.
Yeah. But I've found that you have to like kind of wade through those, because every once in a while you'll get just like a little tidbit, like a little extra fact,
right,
that you can run down on its own, you know? But yeah, I love using books. I'd say I don't use documentaries as much for research purposes as like a catalyst for interest. So like a subject that I choose to research might come from watching a documentary on it, right? Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, I go through similar processes for sure, and trying to, and it is difficult with this kind of subject matter to find primary sources for sure, but that's definitely the most legit way to go about it, and to make sure that the information you're getting is as accurate as possible.
And now, like, I don't mean to like characterize our show as this like lofty academic pursuit, you know, because we do have fun with it, right? I mean, the story section of our episodes, they are stories, right? And I've always liked the quote, "Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story," right? And sometimes you get those, you know, those unsubstantiated details that just make the story that much better. and I don't have any problem using that. But during the debrief section of our episodes, we talk about them, and we discuss like this is confirmed, this isn't, like, you know what I mean? But that first 15-20 minutes of an episode, like I'll put basically anything in there to tell a good spooky story.
Yeah. And I mean, that kind of thing is really at like the core of the human experience. We are a species of storytellers, and our history was passed down through oral tradition for thousands, like untold thousands of years, right? So, you know, details get added or omitted, and, you know, that's where our legends come from.
And I think that's one of my favorite things about folklore is studying the progression of one story over generations, right? Because those little additions along the way can tell you so much about change in the people telling the stories. Right.
Yeah. People bring their own frame of reference or interpretation to whatever's relevant to their time period too. Yeah. That's
exactly.
Sure. So you're talking about your debrief and then your intro, the production and flow of your guys' episodes. It's super on point, and I love how you structure everything, and the way when it opens up, the whole mood is like you're actually there at the campfire listening to someone, which is typically you, tell a wild or scary story. And it's just this really cool dynamic, and it seems like there's, you know, a lot of care into crafting that aesthetic. Was that kind of the idea that you guys had from the get-go, or is it something that has evolved over time where you're like, okay, we need to do this next and kind of shift this way with what we're doing?
First off, thanks for the kind words. Like, I always like to hear that the care that we do put into it is, you know, it's noticed and appreciated, because we do put a lot of work into it. It's not an easy thing. As for the progression of the show, we kind of, from the beginning, we've had this premise, right? This setup where you would have the story and then the debrief. But we've definitely gotten better at it, for sure, along the way. Just especially, I'd say somewhere around episode, I don't remember exactly what it was, our Haunted Highways episode. Sometime I think it was last November, we started really delving into like sound design.
Nice.
And I think that really kicked it up a notch, the storytelling. But yeah, a lot of work goes in, and a lot of that sound design and production is thanks to Ryan. He's always been like he was always the recording engineer when we were in bands, right? He was always the guy who had a home studio and did all that. So he knows his way around a DAW like nobody's business. But yeah, it's a lot of work for sure. But yeah, I love it.
That's awesome. That's cool to know that he works on the sound design and that kind of stuff. Does he actually go through and like compose the different audio tracks that you use? Yeah.
Basically every bit of audio that happens in our podcast is written and composed by Ryan and I.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote the intro to my show when I first started out. I just kind of opened up GarageBand one day and started fiddling around with a bunch of synth sounds.
Yeah.
I want to like do an updated version that's a little bit shorter because a few people are like, it's a really long intro, man. I don't know. And I'm like, well,
I love it.
You know,
I think it's a vibe.
Thank you. And then I discovered like royalty-free music that you can use for podcasts and YouTube videos. Yeah. So I started kind of putting stuff at like the end of shows using that kind of vibe. I'd love to have more time to actually compose some other music in that genre, or maybe even like do some more of my own like music using guitar and stuff like that. But that's
that'd be cool.
I feel like I need to like hire a team or something.
Yeah,
so much.
I should say one caveat to it all being Ryan and I is the like under the debrief section you'll notice like an ambient guitar track. That's actually written and performed by a friend of ours named Greg Martin.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Other than that, it's us though.
Nice.
Yeah, he has this ambient guitar project called Reverent Music. It's killer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think he follows my page, and I think I just actually followed him back because I was like, oh, this guy's like buddies with Jordan and Ryan.
Yeah. We used to play in well, we'd actually never played in the same band, but we toured together a lot in like 2006 to 2010.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. You guys have a really ambitious release schedule, at least compared to what I'm doing. And from what I understand, we chatted a little bit about this. And if you're cool with talking about it, you guys have a lot of big plans for, the future. And I was wondering, what's the work-life balance like with that? And then adding in, the variable of producing more content, and that kind of thing. And also having someone else there with you to help, I'm sure is helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. Like, because we release 2 episodes a week. Every week we release a main episode where we actually dive into a topic. And then on Fridays we release a fireside chat, which is just an interview with sometimes an experiencer, sometimes, a fellow podcaster or someone else.
I was on it recently. Go listen to that episode.
Definitely do. Yeah, that was a great one. But yeah, it's been nice having the two of us because we alternate, right? So I have 2 weeks to research a topic instead of 1 week.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. Especially because we're writing, just for the main episode, we're writing 12 pages of material for every episode. Right?
Yeah,
so,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
I usually try to cap things off between 9 and 10,000 words, which is probably similar to that.
Yeah, it's right about there.
Yeah.
I think when I did Nahanni Valley, that thing was crazy.
Yeah.
Like the story section, I fought to get under 20 minutes.
Oh man.
Yeah,
that's something that I recently found out about, and I've been wanting to eventually do my own episode and take on that. It's a wild story.
I mean, you could do multiple parts the way you did Giants.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, there's a lot to that place.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, I felt when I finished, and I'll put that in quotes, finished. When I felt like I'd done enough for the episode, I just walked away with a feeling like I could write a book about this, because it was probably 30,000 words when I finished. Wow. And then I had to cut it down and cut it down and cut it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild.
But yeah, as we do 2 episodes a week for the main show, but we've been really trying to build up our Patreon recently. So that's where all the extra work is going to come in.
Gotcha.
And we've already started. The plan is by the end of next month to be up to where we want to be, which is 2 separate weekly shows that'll be like half an hour each. And then 2 separate monthly shows that are like deep dives, right? And I'll be doing, one of those will be me diving into the missing 411 phenomenon.
Nice.
And the other will be Ryan diving into the Men in Black.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Just a full series for each topic. And and the 2 weekly shows are basically like a fortean news show where we just like read some articles. Like they're a little looser.
Yeah.
Right. And the other one we're calling Lights Out, which we've already started releasing, and that's just straight short horror fiction.
Cool.
Just read to effect with sound design and the full 9 yards.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's been really cool.
That's
Ryan and I
awesome.
both write a lot. We
Yeah.
just write a lot. So yeah, once we are where we want to be, we'll be releasing 18 episodes a month.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, good luck.
That's a lot.
Good luck to you guys. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. So in other words, the work-life balance is always a struggle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm also someone who is finishing my degree and working and have 5 kids and a wife. And like my life is very full already.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say, wow.
Yeah.
Well, hats off to you, man. That's you've got a life.
Yeah. I'm slowly becoming one of those I'll sleep when I'm dead guys.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. What would you say is your favorite episode that you've done so far? And I'll say this. I haven't had a chance to listen to a ton of your stuff. I'm always super busy. But I loved your guys' episode on the Jersey Devil. That's like one of my favorite, if not my favorite, cryptid stories.
Nice.
My old band actually had an EP that we released on a 7-inch called the Leeds EP, and it was all about the Jersey Devil. So that tells you anything.
Yeah,
that band also had a song about Mothman and Point Pleasant and some other stuff too. This was like
awesome.
Circa 2006, 2007. So yeah.
Yeah, I liked our Jersey Devil episode too. I was kind of worried when it went out because I don't believe in the Jersey Devil. You know what I mean? Like, I love the story.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's like a vital piece of American folklore, you know, but like, and people get offended when you don't believe in their cryptid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They really, really do.
Yeah. I think, you know, Jeremiah from Bigfoot Society, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was posting something on like TikTok the other day, and he like made the squonk community really angry. And I don't know what he did, but yeah, that's
my favorite
stuff, man.
My favorite thing about that story is the realization that I am now in a position in life where I get to hear phrases like the squonk community.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah,
it's a thing.
It sure is. But I'd say my favorite episode is it's probably a tie. I'm gonna cop out and give it a tie. Either the Van Meter Visitor episode, which was very good. I loved that episode so much.
That's a great story too.
Yes, it is. Or we did an episode on Granger Taylor, which I adored. I love that guy so much.
All right.
Like,
I'm going to have to go and listen to those in my car someday.
Yeah, I recommend it.
Yeah. Cool.
Granger Taylor is a really cool story. I don't know if you're familiar with that story, but
I'm not actually.
It's a guy who lived in Alaska and in a super small town. He was obsessed with UFOs, right?
Okay.
And he basically told his one friend. He told his one friend that like on this date at this time, like he was like, I've been visited by aliens. On this date at this time, they're coming to get me.
Oh.
Like he knew ahead of time, right? And he was like, they're coming during a big storm. They're going to use the storm to like cover their entrance and exit.
Oh man.
And yeah, and on that date, I believe it was Vancouver Island, experienced the largest storm it had in 200 years. And he vanished.
No way.
Yeah. Never heard or seen again.
Oh, that's wild. I'm going to have to look into that. It kind of gives me, it's like a cross between like Whitley Strieber's Communion and then also that movie, The Fourth Kind with, was that Mila Jovovich that was in that movie?
I think so.
Yeah. That was a scary movie. at times.
Yeah.
Not like mostly, but when like the alien abductions were going on, like that was freaky.
Yeah. When you have like so many of those abduction stories in your head and then you see it so accurately depicted visually, it's like, it's kind of shocking, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like, I just had this like loose ethereal version of it in my head. And now I'm like, it's concrete in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big nope from me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite cryptid from Indiana?
Okay.
Because there's a few.
Yeah, there are a few. Actually, Jeremiah, again, recently told me a story about ground sloths being seen in Indiana at one point, and like giant ground sloths.
Yeah.
That's super. I had never heard of that. So that was cool. He like sent me articles and everything on it. So
Nice.
yeah. I'd say my favorite is the mud mermaids. It's like, it's classic Southern Indiana. Like, I'm kind of obsessed with yellow journalism and all that stuff going on during the turn of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And this was like prime that.
Right. Yeah.
And but I love that story.
Nice. That's a fun one for sure. Yeah. You've seen Maximus Prime art? He did a really cool piece for his like state project that he's working on for the Mud Mermaids. Yeah.
Although he gave them hair, which I was distinctly offended by.
Ah, shoot.
Because these things were not pretty in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. I guess you get it. Yeah. Artistic liberties or something.
Yeah. Artistic license. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so you guys cover more than like cryptids, of course. Is there a topic that you enjoy researching more, like true crime or paranormal? What would you say you're most passionate about with this show?
I would probably honestly say cryptids. A close second is mysteries. I just love these like bizarre pieces of human history. Like we did the Island Moore Lighthouse mystery, where these lighthouse keepers just vanished. I love a good missing person story, especially when it's like when it has these possibly paranormal aspects.
Yeah.
Right. And we did like the lead masks of Vintame Hill, a story about two guys in Brazil who were found dead on this hillside, and they had all this accoutrement with them, like they were trying to ascend, or they were obsessed with UFOs.
Okay.
I like these weird mystery stories. I think that's probably what I'm most passionate about. When you talk cryptids, I really like, I feel like the vast majority of the things that we as a community call cryptids probably have nothing to do with an undiscovered animal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like cryptid has become a term that's kind of just a catch-all for creatures.
Right.
Right. Of some entities.
Exactly.
Right. Like, and like the real actual like cryptozoological phenomenon is like, I feel like it's much smaller than what we like. That piece of art behind you on the wall.
Yes.
The crossing the Delaware.
Oh, which finger am I? This one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Like most of those aren't unclassified animals.
Right.
Yeah. But I do love that I like I like not understanding. That's my favorite thing about our show and about looking into this. I'm not one of those guys who needs an answer.
Yeah.
Or needs to even lean one way or the other. Like I'm perfectly happy fence sitting and enjoying the view of both sides,
Sure.
And I like that. I don't know what the hell any of these things are. Right. I feel like a lot of people, they want to like, no way, Bigfoot is an ape. Right. And but nobody knows.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe Bigfoot's a quantum ultra terrestrial from another dimension. We just don't know.
Maybe he's extraterrestrial, right?
Yeah, sighted around lots of UFOs, you know.
Yeah, maybe he's like the ghost of a Neanderthal. You know, like it could be anything.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true, but also maybe untrue. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One thing that always kind of like raises my eyebrow, and it's and I'm not trying to gatekeep, but it's when people classify like gray aliens as cryptids, and I'm like,
yes,
are they cryptids or are they there's an alien species from another planet? I mean, I guess technically they're not discovered yet, but there's plenty more evidence for aliens than there are for most cryptids.
Absolutely.
So that's always a funny thing that I always wonder about when they're included in the classification of cryptids. But
yeah, I mean, I feel the same way about. I mean, the most egregious version of that is Mothman, right? Like the odds that Mothman was really an unclassified giant bird are very small.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That feels like a very small possibility to me.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you know, the same argument could be had for gray aliens that you have for Bigfoot or Mothman. Really, is are they extraterrestrial? Are they ultra terrestrial? Are they like time travelers? Right? Like, so who really knows with all of it? That's the cool part.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of aliens, what's your take on the UFO phenomena and recent, I guess, efforts of disclosure? There's all sorts of, talk and stuff with like people like Tom DeLonge and Lou Elizondo, and it's a fun topic.
Here's the thing. It's changed a lot over the years. I'm not a conspiracy guy. I'm really not. Mm-hmm. It kind of turns me off, actually. Like the like real deep conspiracy stuff, Yeah. I won't even use any of the buzzwords, but like I'm not any. Probably when I was young, I was like UFOs are aliens, right?
Yeah,
I was 100% on board with it. I'm not at this point a nuts and bolts UFO guy. Like, I have trouble. I don't know, because it's changed so much over time, and the description of UFO encounters and alien encounters, it always seems to fit perfectly within the cultural context that it occurred in, right?
Yeah. So
there has to be something else to it. And there are so many weird stories like the what is it? The Aurora crash, UFO crash. It there's a detail in there where they claim to have found paper, like physical papers inside with like weird alien language written on it. And I'm almost certain that a society or a civilization capable of interstellar travel probably is not still using a pen and paper inside their spaceship. You know what I mean? Like there's just weird things like that, and like clear glass windows in the sides of these crafts, and like, but back to my original point, when you look at like UFO accounts from like the Middle Ages, even, they're seeing large, literal like wooden ships in the sky, right? Mm-hmm. That's what they describe. And you take that to the 50s, you're seeing the saucer. You take it now, we're seeing the Tic Tac, and we're seeing the black triangles, right? Like these things, it's like they upgrade with us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it feels like more than just a physical thing. I think there's definitely a psychosocial angle to it, or influence in what's happening. Like, I don't want to say tulpas, but I feel like the perception of the experiencer has a lot to do with what's there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wild rabbit hole that you can keep going down. And it's like tied to the trickster phenomenon. It's tied to interdimensionality, the time cube.
The cosmic joker.
Yeah. There's something going on, but it's just like, what is it?
Yeah.
And it seems to have been with us for a very long time.
Yeah.
So who knows?
See, that's the thing that I try to keep in like the back of my head at all times is like, of all these stories that we explore, of all of them, if even one of them is true, that means something has been shadowing humanity since its inception.
Right.
Like, that's what that means. Something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but something is there. If one story is true, something's there.
Yeah. Definitely. Have you ever encountered anything that you couldn't explain?
Oh, man. This is the saddest question.
Oh,
because it's no.
Well,
it's no.
Not everybody has. Most people have.
Yeah. I feel like, and I joke a lot with Ryan that I'm just like, I reek of desperation, so they stay away from me, you know?
Yeah.
Because I would love confirmation, right? I've never had it.
Yeah.
Right. And I grew up in houses where my mom and my brother and my friends were all having these like paranormal experiences and seeing things and feeling things. And I'm just like, I'm just trying to watch TV, guys.
That's funny. Yeah. It seems like a lot of the times, it comes to you when you're not expecting it. But then there's people that claim that they can like summon UFOs and stuff. So I don't know if they're actually legit.
that's another thing that, but if we go back like to the emotional version or the perception of UFOs, I feel like that's a really common thing actually to hear. Like, I could tell that the UFO saw me see it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like I felt like we were interacting.
Yeah.
And like that, there's no way that's just physical.
No.
Right? There's something there. Yeah. Sorry.
Quantum
go backward, but
quantum entanglement. I don't know.
Yeah, something.
All right. Well, okay. So let's do a little bit of a non sequitur here, because I saw that you are a Seinfeld fan, and I wanted to know what's your favorite episode of Seinfeld?
Oh man, it's the Keys.
Yeah.
It's the Keys is my favorite Seinfeld episode by far, where they have, each friend has a friend who has a backup set of their keys to their apartment, right?
God,
so
that episode.
they're just working backwards. Everyone's trying to get their keys back and give them to new friends. And there's one moment where Jerry and George find out that Elaine has been writing episodes of Murphy Brown on her own, just like for fun.
Yeah.
And I feel like little moments like that in that show are what makes it beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like, these are like, it didn't feel like other sitcoms of the era. This felt like real people. You know what I mean? Like, I know people who do stuff like that. Like, how many people do you think you know who probably write things that no one will ever see? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I love that episode.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, it reveals a ton of like interpersonal stuff between the characters. Yeah. It's a cool episode.
Yeah, no, that was a great show. I was going to say, I love the, because it's kind of like, in a way related to maybe a cryptid, but the episode where they're in the hospital and Kramer finds the pig man.
Oh yeah.
And he's trying to tell everybody that there's a pig man in the hospital. No one believes him, but then at the end he's like, That's a good one. Yeah, we my partner and I like binge watched the whole series I think like a year or two ago, and before that, I think I had watched the whole series back in like 2015 or something like that. Do you ever watch Curb Your Enthusiasm? Speaking of like Larry David and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
The new season was pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love everything Larry David does. So yeah. And Seinfeld for that matter. I personally don't give a shit about cars, but I could watch comedians in cars getting coffee. I've watched every episode of that dozens of times.
Yeah, I've seen that too. I don't think I've seen every episode, but yeah, it's definitely some good watching TV.
Yeah, definitely.
Now you're also a bit of a horror film fan. What are your favorite movies in that genre?
Okay. Yeah, I'm a very picky horror fan. I'm kind of a snob about horror movies, which sucks because it's a genre that is honestly filled with really bad movies.
Yes.
There's a lot of bad horror, right? And the biggest horror movie fan will tell you. And the happiest horror fans are the ones who get joy even from the bad ones.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't think I fall into that camp. I think when a horror movie is made well, it's the best movie-going experience imaginable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Over any other genre when it's done well, which is rare. I think my two favorite horror movies ever are Suspiria.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is, Dario Argento. It's like a visual masterpiece.
Yeah, I watched that back in, God, I don't know, long time ago. I haven't watched it since, but it was a good one.
So like the premise is a ballet school that is secretly like a witch coven, but none of that even matters. The story doesn't matter. It's like tense visual and musical energy from beginning to end. It's a beautiful movie. Yeah, really well done. And
that's
the other one is yes, the original. Yeah, that I think they remade it in like 2018 or something like fairly recent. Yeah. Sorry.
No worries.
And the second one is The Shining.
Oh, okay.
I grew up as like a massive Stephen King fan. I still I have a bookshelf like right next to me that has every book he's ever written.
Oh wow.
Which is a lot. That guy never stops.
No.
But The Shining, I feel like is because I'll take psychology over gore 100 times out of 100, right? With horror. And that movie is like pure psychological torture.
Yeah.
It's just like the concept of watching someone slowly turn into someone else, someone they never thought they would be, I think that's the scariest thing that I can imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Is like just the concept that maybe this time next year, I won't even recognize myself. Right. Like that's scary shit.
Yeah. Have you guys done an episode on the Stanley Hotel at all or have any plans to?
It's on my list.
Yeah.
But I have a couple friends who worked out there. And I really would rather cover it in like a fireside chat and talk with them about it.
Oh, that would be cool.
But there's a lot of crazy stuff out there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I'm gonna do a few more questions here, and then we've got a couple audience questions I wanna throw at you. So can you talk about any plans you have coming up for 2022? Are you guys gonna try to make it out to any of the festivals? Are you doing any vending to kind of promote the podcast, that kind of thing?
Okay, so we will absolutely 100% be at, barring disaster, right? If an asteroid doesn't hit, we will be at Cryptid Bash and CryptidCon.
Nice.
We'll be at least at CryptidCon, we'll be vending from the Paranormality magazine table.
Ah, right on.
Yeah. So we'll just kind of, we'll be partnered up with them for that event. And we really are, we're really, really hoping and trying to like get it scheduled to be at the Van Meter Visitor Festival. It's a little bit longer of a drive for us, but even that's only 8.5 hours, which isn't terrible.
Nice.
Yeah, that's the plan and we're basically until then, we're just steady dropping new t-shirts.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys actually recently released this awesome design that Jonathan Dodd illustrated, and he's a great artist, good buddy. And are you going to work with him on any new designs coming up, or?
I actually have an idea for a Van Meter shirt that I've been talking to Jonathan about. Our most recent shirt was actually Easton Hawk did the Stardust Ranch shirt.
Oh,
and that's
right.
Probably my favorite.
Yeah, I got to pick one of those up. I got to pick up both your shirts, actually.
Yeah, that Stardust Ranch shirt it turned out beautifully.
Yeah. Easton is a beastin with his with his illustration skills. Yeah. He's actually he's coming back on the show in a few episodes, which will be fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's our plans for 2022, just to try to release. We'd like to release a bunch of merch. We're trying to get the Patreon fully geared up, and we're gonna start hitting festivals. We want to meet we've made so many cool friends in the last 7 months.
Yeah.
We just want to meet some of you guys in person.
Yeah, no, like CryptidCon and Cryptid Bash last year was awesome. And I mean, Strangeology is just about to turn 2 years old, and I've met some of like the coolest people I've ever met in my life throughout this community. And it's so supportive and welcoming, which is really nice to be a part of. So
yeah,
we're glad you guys are hanging out.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, we're pumped to be here.
Stuff. Yeah, for sure.
When we first launched the show, I honestly didn't expect this at all. Like because the closest thing we ever tried to doing this before was a band, right? And it's a completely different experience. Like, you meet people you like and you get along with, but like, you're not interacting with the bass player from that band you played with last Saturday. You're not seeing what they're doing every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And doing the band thing is probably 100 times like more work than this stuff. It's funny. Yeah, it's wild.
The progress is just so much slower.
Yeah.
It takes so much longer to write a song than it does for me to write, 10 pages of script.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then we're back to you play a show to 5 people in a dirty basement somewhere that you drove 3 hours to, and you're not getting gas money to get home to.
You just carried like an 810 cab down a narrow basement staircase. Yeah.
Story of my life.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, looks like I've got a couple of questions from a couple of my patrons, actually.
Cool.
So I'm just gonna wing these out to you. So this first one is from Cassie's Land, and she asks, if there is one truth out of this whole strange and paranormal cryptid universe that you could get the answer to, what would it be?
Man, I think I'd say afterlife or not. That's what I'd really want to know.
Yeah.
Because I think that shifts everything, right? I think that's a huge question.
Yeah, it's probably the biggest question, right?
Yeah, it would probably precipitate a lot of other ansers based on knowing that, right?
Oh, yeah. Where did we come from, and where are we going, and are we alone in the universe, right?
Yeah.
The big three.
Yeah. So yeah, that's probably what I'd go with.
Nice. And then the other one I've got is from Greg over at All the Weird, and he asks, is there a topic which might not be in the fortean realm that you'd like to cover on your show?
Um, I've like obviously the closest thing to what we do that isn't what we do is true crime.
Yeah.
And I've tried to, we both, Ryan and I, have tried to avoid like kind of dabbling in those waters, especially when you cover like a haunting. It's very easy to get dragged into like the atrocities that created the haunting, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, I try to stay away from those because they scare the shit out of me. I think like,
because they're the realness behind the stories, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I'll use cryptid the way, to describe all those things on the boat behind you. Like there isn't a single cryptid I've heard of that is scarier than people.
Right.
Right. Like no way.
The human monster is the worst monster for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are definitely some histories that I'd love to get into. That's like the one drawback to our premise is some stories are interesting and they're not scary. Right? Like, and the goal is to write a scary campfire story. So yeah, that's another avenue that all these Patreon shows are really giving us a chance to like dive into topics that we don't have to worry about making them scary. Right.
Yeah.
So I think I'm kind of doing that through the Patreon. The series, the monthly series that I'm going to be doing is called Into Thin Air. And it explores the missing 411 phenomenon.
Nice.
Yeah. So I think that's probably the answer.
Cool.
Yeah, because I love a disappearance story. It's especially open-ended ones.
Yeah. I definitely gotta look into it.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Bennington Triangle disappearances in Vermont? That's a pretty wild story.
Yeah.
I kind of want to like go down there sometime and just kind of take some video and do some vlogging. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if I want to get abducted by some kind of force.
Slip into some void.
Yeah. Bennington, I think, is the town that's near there. It's in the southwestern corner of Vermont. And I think it's like, I don't know about in the nation, but at least in Vermont, it's one of the most, if not the most haunted places in the state. And my oldest sister used to live down there, and the apartment that she rented, she claimed was haunted. One time my folks and I went down to visit and we spent the night there, but I don't think I experienced anything, but I was definitely on edge going to bed because I was made aware that like, oh yeah, your sister saw an apparition like hanging out in a doorway. And I was like, wow, oh, okay. Why are we staying here?
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, sorry. The Bennington Triangle is super interesting area in general. Like there's some cool urban legends in that area too, like the redheaded hitchhiker and stuff like that. Like, very cool stuff. Yeah. From that area. The man-eating rock. There's also like Bigfoot stories and UFO stories and stuff. Yeah. The whole like Glastonbury area. It's just like this vast wilderness that you have to hike to get to, because it's like this dead lumber mill town from the late 1800s. Yeah. There's definitely some weird stuff in New England. So
see, that's the bummer of growing up somewhere like Indiana, because like I didn't get to grow up hearing Bigfoot stories at all. Like other than my dad's, of course, but that happened in Alaska. Right. But like there are lots of UFO sightings here because it's open skies, basically.
Yeah, it's very flat out your way.
Yes. It's basically like living on a giant sheet of paper that they just plant corn all over.
Yeah.
That's all it is. You get these like little strips of trees every 4 or 5 cornfields that you can see through.
Yeah.
Right. That's about as dense as it gets.
Yeah. I remember when I was driving to CryptidCon back in November, I took the New York Turnpike all the way out to Erie, Pennsylvania, and then I passed through Ohio. And once I was like past like Cleveland, it was just like flat, and I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
I've never driven out that way. When I was a little kid, I took the train with like my mom and my grandma to go out to like Washington State to go visit some family out there, but I don't remember the terrain except for like on the plain states,
Right.
where it was just like totally flat. But yeah, no, that's wild stuff, man.
Yeah. Once you get out of like Appalachia, once you get to like central Ohio, it's basically flat until Nebraska.
Yep.
Like, yeah. It's, yeah.
Yeah. Not very interesting landscape.
No,
But
definitely not.
Some interesting stories. Well, it was awesome having you on the show tonight, Jordan. Where can my audience find you online?
Jeff, don't you want to know what keeps me up at night?
Oh, shoot. Ah, man. I scrolled past that. I've got like my document. Every time I flip back and forth, it like jumps on me. Well, let's do that one though, because that's always like a really fun question. Yeah. What keeps you up at night out of all the high strangeness out in the world?
Honestly, I think it goes back to what we were talking about with The Shining. It's probably demonic possession.
Ooh, yeah.
Really, really freaks me out. Like, I've covered it for the show twice, and both times I have like legitimately like wake me up from a dead sleep nightmares for weeks after I cover it. Like, it really affects me. Just the idea of like someone turning on a dime, like changing on a dime, is like terrifying, right? Whether it's supernatural or not, that's scary. But yeah, it messes with me, especially when you're researching one that ends up having like, you've stumbled upon like audio files from exorcisms, and as soon as I would find an audio file, I'm like, damn it. Like, I'm going to have to listen to this thing. And yeah. Yeah, that's probably it. That's the one that freaks me out the most, for sure.
Yeah. It's legit.
And it's just,
for sure.
It's been so common throughout history. It's happened. It's shockingly common throughout history.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
and there's
unsettling thing that you have to contend with in reality, or hopefully you don't have to at any point in your life. But yeah.
And some version of it exists in almost every culture, right? Like, it's one of those widespread things. It just seems like it's a part of the human experience.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then it kind of begs the question of like, is there more to reality? Is there this other realm? Are there these other consciousness or energetic beings that attach themselves to you in some way or another based on an emotional state? That kind of thing. Yeah. It's scary stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's one of those things where it's like you look at the phenomena and you don't want that to look back at you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. It's like when you talk about skinwalkers, there's just a little bit of you that's like, do I want to put myself under this microscope?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Right on, man. Well, thanks for revealing your your thoughts on that, man. It's
yeah.
Cool. Well, that's about it for all my questions here. I think we've been going on for a bit. If you can let my audience know where they can find you online, your merch shop, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You can find the podcast on all the social media, campfire.tales.podcast on Instagram and Facebook. On Twitter, it's Campfire TOTSAU. You can find the podcast on literally anywhere that you listen to a podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, you can find us. And please do that.
Yes, and definitely check out this podcast. It's great, and support them with merch, and check out their Patreon too, because this kind of stuff takes a lot of work, and it's really helpful to
Patreon's about to blow up.
To have support for sure. If you love this kind of stuff and you want to support your favorite creator, definitely you got to check that out. All right. Well, thank you again, Jordan. For my patrons, stick around. We're going to take a quick break, and Jordan and I are going to talk about the Ozark Howler and some weird stuff that goes along with that. So, yeah. All right. We'll catch you everybody next time, and keep it strange. All right. Thanks again, Jordan, for coming on to the show. It was a blast. We'll have to do it again sometime. Definitely make sure everybody out there listening to check out Campfire, Tales of the Strange and Unsettling Podcast. It's an amazing show, and they've got some really cool merch and a forthcoming Patreon, and they're really ambitious, and they're going to do a lot of great things. So yeah, that was great. And as always, when I do wrapping up an episode, I've got to give a big thanks again to everyone out there who checks out this show. Thank you for listening to and sharing the Strangeology podcast with your friends, your family. It helps me out so much when you do, to spread the word. And if you have a minute, I'd love it if you left me a review over on Apple Podcasts, or if you want to send me a message, suggestions, you can hit up my website, strangeology.com, and go to the contact page, or you can shoot me a DM over on Instagram. The lines are always open. And if you have a story, just going to pitch this again. If you have a story about a strange encounter with something unexplained, whether it's a cryptid, a UFO encounter, I'm trying to gather some stories for a new episode that's kind of like a listeners based stories type of format. I did this one kind of thing early on where people wrote their stories and I read off the stories, but I have a voicemail available. You can give it a call anytime you like. The number is 802-448-0612, and I think there's like a 2 to 3 minute time limit. So if your story takes longer than that to tell, you can just call right back and pick up where you left off. Again, if you have any stories about the strange and unexplained encounters in your life, definitely give the Strangeology hotline a call. Again, the number is 802-448-0612. And of course, before we sign off today, we've got to plug the Patreon. If you're looking for an easy way to support the Strangeology podcast and what I'm doing over here, you can head on over to patreon.com/Strangeology. I offer a wide variety of benefits and perks, which start as little as $1 per month. Some of the perks include shoutouts, a merch discount to my Etsy shop, VIP Discord access, early access to content, access to the members-only Strangeology Beyond segments of the show, and hopefully future Patreon-only episodes, exclusive members-only merch, and much more. And speaking of shoutouts, these patrons are helping keep the lights on at Strangeology. We've got Alex Dorgan, Alyssa, Mystic Novelty Company, Appalachian Huntsman, MetaZoo Games, Greg Morrill from All the Weird, Sean Colon, Miranda Jarnot, John Hickenbottom, Maureen Asmat, Prepared Wolf, Gail Frederick, Adam Flynn, Connor Boyle, Ryan Holiday, Cassie Maratson, Ann Lucher-Zykowski-Ford, and Angie Fitz. So again, if you want to check that out, head on over to patreon.com/Strangeology. I very much appreciate it. And you can also support the show by picking up merch over on my Etsy shop, which I'll link in the show notes. I have a lot of cryptid and alien designs and other branded stuff as well, from t-shirts to tank tops, long sleeves, hoodies, stickers. I also have magnets now. I don't remember if I mentioned that. So there's a number of designs on die-cut magnets. There's mugs as well. I have a couple of enamel pins and plans to design some new ones soon. And don't forget to follow me over on social media as well as YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, of course, TikTok, where things are going totally wild, Twitter, and Facebook, whatever you prefer. And that about does it for today's show, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the interview. And for members, we're going to take a short break here, and Jordan and I will be talking about some strange tales of southern cryptids. So stick with us. And for everyone else, take care of yourselves and each other. And until next time, keep it strange. All right, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for Strangeology Beyond, which is your exclusive